Let me get this straight, Triple H and Adam Pearce just suspended Paul Heyman, and Nick Aldis is furious about it. The same Nick Aldis who's been playing second fiddle to Pearce for months. The same corporate puppet who's been nodding along to every decision made in Stamford. Now he suddenly grows a spine. Give me a break. This is the most hypocritical, politically motivated backstage circus I've seen in years, and if you're not absolutely livid about how WWE management is treating one of the greatest minds in professional wrestling history, then you haven't been paying attention. Paul Heyman, the legendary advocate, the man who built ECW from nothing, the Wiseman who's carried more storylines than half the current roster combined, just got thrown under the bus by the very same people who've been using him to get Roman Reigns over for the past 4 years. And Nick Aldis. He's got the audacity to voice his concerns now. Where was this energy when actual injustices were happening week after week? I'll tell you exactly why this suspension is absolute garbage, why Aldis's reaction exposes everything wrong with Wise's power structure, and why this could be the beginning of the end for Triple H's so-called creative vision. But before we dive into this absolute dumpster fire of corporate politics and backstage manipulation, do me a massive favor. If you're as frustrated with Wise's management decisions as I am, smash that subscribe button right now. Hit that notification bell because WWE pulls stunts like this every single week, and you need to be here when we expose the truth behind these questionable decisions. We're building the most brutally honest wrestling community on YouTube, and your support means everything. Now let's get into why this Paul Heyman suspension is one of the biggest mistakes Triple H and Adam Pearce have ever made. Let's start with the foundation of this entire controversy, Paul Heyman's suspension. According to reports and what we've seen play out on television, Triple H and Adam Pearce decided to suspend the Wiseman for his actions surrounding the Tribal Chief storyline. Now, I want you to think about this critically for just 1 second. Paul Heyman has been doing exactly what his character has been doing for 4 years. He's been the advocate, the strategist, the manipulator behind Roman Reigns' historic championship reign. That was literally his job. WWE booked him to do these things. WWE Creative wrote these segments. And now, suddenly, when it's convenient for whatever convoluted storyline they're trying to tell, Heyman gets suspended. This is where the WWE universe should be outraged. You don't get to book a character to behave a certain way for years, profit off that character's heat and storylines, sell merchandise, drive ratings, and then arbitrarily punish that character when it suits your narrative. That's not storytelling, that's lazy, inconsistent booking that insults the intelligence of everyone watching. And here's where it gets even more infuriating. Triple H, the same man who's been praised endlessly for saving WWE after Vince McMahon's departure, is now showing the exact same authoritarian, nonsensical management style that fans criticized Vince for. Remember when we all celebrated Triple H taking over creative? Remember when we thought the days of random, illogical punishments and corporate power trips were over? Wrong. This Heyman suspension proves that the more things change in WWE, the more they stay exactly the same. Now let's talk about Nick Aldis and his reaction, because this is where things get absolutely fascinating and blood-boiling at the same time. Nick Aldis, the SmackDown general manager, reportedly had issues with how this suspension was handled. He felt blindsided. He felt disrespected. He felt like his authority was undermined. Are you kidding me right now? Nick Aldis has spent his entire tenure as SmackDown GM being a yes man. Has he created must-see television? Has he been involved in any storylines that people will remember 5 years from now? No. He's been a placeholder, a name from the independent scene that WWE brought in to fill a role, and now he's trying to create relevance by piggybacking off the Paul Heyman controversy. The audacity of Nick Aldis to suddenly care about due process, about fairness, about proper management protocol when it comes to Heyman's suspension is absolutely mind-blowing when you consider his track record. Where was this principled stand when other superstars were being unfairly treated? Where was this moral backbone when questionable decisions were being made week after week? He was silent. Completely and utterly silent. Here's the uncomfortable truth that the wrestling community needs to confront. Triple H is not the savior of WWE that everyone wants him to be. Yes, he's made improvements. Yes, NXT under his leadership was phenomenal. Yes, He's brought back some fan-favorite wrestlers and given opportunities to talented performers. I'll give credit where it's due. But, and this is a massive but, he's also showing the same ego-driven, politically motivated decision-making that plagued WWE for decades. This Paul Heyman suspension is Exhibit A. There is no logical, kayfabe reason why Heyman should be suspended that holds up under scrutiny. If this is punishment for his actions as Roman's advocate, then dozens of managers and advocates throughout WWE history should have been suspended. If this is about him breaking rules, then where's the consistency? Why isn't this same standard applied to everyone across the board? The answer is simple, because this isn't about justice or fairness or consistent storytelling. This is about Triple H flexing his authority. This is about showing that he's in charge now. This is about making a statement that even the most established, most respected figures in the company can be taken down if they don't fall in line. And that's exactly the kind of backstage politics that drove fans crazy during previous eras. And let's talk about Adam Pearce's role in all of this, because he's just as culpable. Pearce, who's been presented as this fair, reasonable authority figure for years, just went along with this suspension without any apparent pushback. The same guy who's supposed to represent order and fairness in WWE just rubber-stamped a decision that makes no sense. That tells you everything you need to know about the current power structure. Pearce isn't an independent voice, he's an extension of Triple H's will, and that's dangerous for the overall health of WWE's storytelling. Some of you might be thinking, it's just a storyline, why are you so worked up? And that's exactly the problem. Too many fans are willing to accept lazy, inconsistent storytelling because it's just wrestling. But that mentality is what allows WWE to get away with garbage booking decisions that undermine the very foundation of what makes professional wrestling compelling. Paul Heyman is one of the greatest storytellers and characters in wrestling history. Period. That's not opinion, that's fact supported by decades of evidence. From ECW to his advocacy work with Brock Lesnar to his essential role in Roman Reigns' transformation into the tribal chief, Heyman has consistently delivered at the highest level. Storyline and behind the scenes. When you arbitrarily suspend a character like Paul Heyman without proper narrative justification, you're telling the audience that continuity doesn't matter. You're saying that character development doesn't matter. You're communicating that WWE can and will change the rules whenever it's convenient for them, regardless of how it affects the stories they've been telling. This creates a massive problem for viewer investment. Why should fans emotionally invest in storylines if WWE can just hit the reset button whenever they want? Why should we care about character motivations if those motivations can be ignored when they become inconvenient? Why should we believe anything we see on WWE television if the company has demonstrated time and time again that consistency and logic are optional? Nick Aldis's reaction, whether it's genuine concern or political posturing, highlights a bigger issue within WWE's management structure. There are clearly power struggles happening behind the scenes. There's obviously tension between different authority figures about how decisions should be made and who has final say. And that chaos always seeps into the on-screen product. We've seen this pattern before. When WWE's corporate structure is dysfunctional, when there are too many people with authority and not enough clear hierarchy, the booking becomes inconsistent, storylines get started and abandoned, and talented performers get lost in the shuffle. The Paul Heyman suspension might seem like an isolated incident, but it's actually a symptom of a much larger disease within WWE's creative process. And here's what really worries me: if Triple H is willing to make arbitrary, illogical decisions about a figure as important as Paul Heyman, what does that mean for everyone else on the roster? If the Wiseman can be suspended without proper justification, then anyone can be buried, depushed, or written off television at any moment. That creates an environment of instability that's terrible for both the performers and the fans. If WWE actually cares about storytelling integrity, if Triple H genuinely wants to be different from the regimes that came before him, then this suspension needs to be addressed properly. There needs to be an on-screen explanation that makes logical sense within the context of WWE's established rules and precedents. There needs to be consequences for this decision that actually advance storylines rather than derail them. Nick Aldis, if he's serious about his concerns, needs to actually do something about it. Stop with the corporate double-speak and the political maneuvering. If you genuinely believe this suspension was wrong, then fight for Heyman's reinstatement. Use your position as general manager to actually make a difference instead of just voicing concerns behind closed doors. And Adam Pearce needs to explain his rationale. The fans deserve to know why he agreed to this suspension. What rule did Heyman break? What precedent are they following? How is this consistent with previous disciplinary actions in WWE? These questions need answers, and vague corporate statements won't cut it. This entire situation, from the questionable suspension to Nick Aldis's hypocritical reaction to Triple H and Adam Pearce's arbitrary exercise of authority, represents everything that frustrates hardcore wrestling fans about WWE's approach to storytelling. We want to believe that things are different now. We want to have faith that Triple H's regime will prioritize consistent, logical booking. But incidents like this make it really hard to maintain that faith. Paul Heyman deserves better than this. The WWE Universe deserves better than this. And quite frankly, professional wrestling as an art form deserves better than this. If WWE can't even maintain basic storytelling consistency with one of their most important characters, then what hope is there for the countless other storylines happening across their programming? This is Ring Rumble 1, and we're going to keep holding WWE accountable for these decisions. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the Heyman suspension makes sense? Is Nick Aldis a hypocrite for suddenly caring about fairness? And is Triple H becoming just another authoritarian corporate figure? Let's have a real conversation about this because WWE needs to know that we're not just going to accept lazy booking without pushback. Hit that like button, share this video with every wrestling fan you know, and let's make sure our voices are heard.